Hello and welcome back to the Legends of Tomorrow after show right here on thestream.tv. I'm your host, Jamie Philbrick, and we've got a great episode to talk about, to discuss tonight. But before we do, I want to remind you that if you go on Twitter, you can participate in the show with us. Yep. We want you to use the hashtag LegendsAS. Comment through the show, ask us questions. We're going to get to those during the show, so please do that. And you can also comment on our Facebook page. I also want to show you this beautiful poster we have right here that we are giving away. All you need to do to enter to win this poster is to like us on our Facebook page and comment in the comments section. And then you're entered to win. Perfect.
Perfect.
So before we begin, let me introduce my Legends crew. On my immediate right tonight, Lewis Love.
Hello, everyone. I just took a quick shower because we were doing the Flash after show, and
straight from the Flash after show. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so. And to Lewis's immediate right, Patrick Campbell is back again.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's good to be back. Yeah, we were just here. It's good to be here. Lewis, I'm glad to have you here.
I comb my hair a little bit, you know, give you a different look.
Yeah, yeah, and I just come in, I just step in, and here we go. And now we're ready for Legends. So we have an exciting episode to talk about tonight. Very. Season 2, Episode 10, The Legion of Doom. And really, enough said, Legion of Doom, and that's pretty much what this episode is about. We didn't get a lot of the Legends. It's mostly the Legion. We actually see the episode from their point of view, so I'll begin with you, Lewis. What did you think?
Dude, what more could I say? It's bad guys. Bad guys always steal the show.
Yeah.
What more could I say? It was amazing. There's some scenes in there where, like, Damien Dark, we'll get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. But what did you think about basically sort of giving our Legends a break this week and sort of an opportunity to really dive into the villains? It's a different thing for the show to do.
Definitely. I could watch more of that. I mean, I love the villains. They're like great. Legion of Doom in the house. Baby, it's all about the bad guys. DC has the best bad guys, and we're watching it. And I actually think in this episode they came into their own. A few people that I know were iffy about the Legion of Doom team.
What were they iffy about?
There was like complaints maybe that they weren't strong enough.
That the individual team members, they didn't like the team members?
Yeah, they didn't like the team members. They felt like they weren't threatening enough as villains. But now they showed the dynamics. You know, Damien Dark holding those daggers behind him?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great part of this episode is we really got to dive into the dynamics between these three characters. Patrick, what do you think about that?
I was waiting for that. It was a thing that, because I was talking about last week, I loved the chemistry between these guys. I've always liked John Barrowman as an actor. I like all of them, Neil McDonough. All these guys are great. And so to have them together and really kind of, they chew up the scenery a lot, and it's fun to watch them. And I thought that it was funny because we were talking on the Flash after show. We'd like to see a show all from the villain's point of view, only to have Legends do that.
And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, exactly. Just right after, just minutes after.
Yeah, so I thought that was great, and I think it's a nice, I guess, a step away from the Legends to do something different, because it's always good for a show to kind of do something different to feel fresh, and I thought they did that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I think it was a nice break. I mean, we love our Legends, but it was a nice change of pace. And, you know, the Legion really, I mean, we've seen them throughout the whole season, but they were really kind of basically introduced last week officially. And now we got to sort of see those characters grow this week and really see the dynamics, which were super interesting between Malcolm and Malcolm and Damien Dark, and then how they're sort of reacting with Thawne and what he's up to. There was a bit of a power play in this episode. What do we think about that?
I think it's great because it really defines what bad guys do. What do bad guys want? They want power. So why would they want to share it? You know what I mean? Yeah. So you see the internal, and all these guys, they're badasses. You know, the straight descendant of Ra's al Ghul. You got, I mean, come on.
Well, and that was one of the interesting things when it was the dynamic of sort of Malcolm versus Dark.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of talk of, well, you used to be Ra's, but that doesn't matter, and I learned from the real Ra's. And there was this really interesting interplay that we got from those two characters that meant something to us as the audience members because we watched Arrow and we watched Flash and we've seen all of that stuff come together. Yeah. Well, how did you feel?
I thought it was interesting, too, because last week it felt like they had such good chemistry and they were all getting along, but only to have it be revealed that maybe things weren't as kosher as we thought they were, and especially for those two who, as you said, we all know that they have a history with the League of Shadows already. Right. That's where they both learned, and so for them to kind of go toe-to-toe that way and almost this fight for dominance because they want to be the power players. We've known that for how long with these guys?
Right.
So for them to kind of fight that way was a lot of fun, and I liked that dynamic because last week I just liked them kind of being the buddy cops almost.
Right.
But to see them in a different light tonight was really nice.
And it was really cool also because we got to see how Malcolm joined the group. We didn't quite know that, it had happened off screen. So we really got to see that kind of happen on the episode and sort of see that flashback. And what was also great with this episode, I know you guys love this, was the League of Assassins versus League of Assassins. So we had a duel between Damien Darhk and Malcolm Merlyn, which was pretty awesome. And right in front of Rip. Rip sitting there with his hands tied behind his back and had to watch this whole thing. I mean, that's kind of the culmination of what we've been wanting from the show, right?
Yeah, and it was pretty brutal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely stepped up the brutality and a little bit of gore in there too, right?
A little bit. I mean, there was a lot of just smashing of the swords and and also the one-liners, right? Yeah, because obviously Damien and Malcolm are the best at the one-liners, so there's a lot of that coming out.
Especially we came off last week's episode, it was kind of like a little goofy and fun, and then this season was just like throwing cold water on you.
This episode was action and character driven, which I loved.
It was cool because I'm actually rewatching Arrow with my wife right now. So I'm seeing season 2 from the beginning, and to see Malcolm now versus Malcolm then, and that kind of fight reminded me of that because you remember what we saw with him in the League of Shadows before, how cool he was, how badass he was, and how he could just take on anyone. And I was really happy to see he was back at doing that, and especially to see him going up against someone like Darhk. And Darhk was someone who, say what you will about Arrow season 4, but he was so strong of a character.
He was a great villain. I know that the season 4 is maligned by some fans, but I mean, he really was a strong villain.
Yeah, and he always gave Oliver a run for his money, and Oliver is someone very, very talented. So to see these two guys, especially in front of Rip, which was kind of fun and kind of different, but to see them really fighting like that and seeing what we can know they can do, and seeing them to their full potential, it was amazing.
What's also great is that, and I think it was a great choice of choosing Malcolm and Damien to be part of the Legion, if they're going to go up against the Legends, they're both tied to Sarah. I mean, through the League of Assassins and obviously through the death of her sister, but very tied closely to them. And as we found out, or the Legends found out tonight, Martin Stein is also pretty closely tied to Reverse Flash. So let's talk about the Thawne reveals tonight, because there were some very exciting reveals about Thawne. We finally, I know you and I have talked about this in the past. What Thawne were we dealing with?
Yep.
Is this the Thawne from season 1 of Flash, from before that? So now we know. This Thawne is a time remnant of the Thawne that died in the season finale of the first season of Flash. He is also the Flash that was stuck in Flashpoint at the beginning of this season with Barry. And we also found out the reason he can't stay in one place for too long and he's always running away from his Legion buddies is because he's a time remnant and the Black Flash is after him. As you mentioned, the Grim Reaper.
Those are awesome.
Is that not amazing? My mind almost blew when I was thinking about all of the time traveling and all the intricacies of this story. I loved it. Lewis, what'd you think?
I love it too. As soon as when I first saw those guys, I had to research it on the internet. I had no idea these things existed. The designs are amazing, and they look just like the comics. If you do a Google search,
absolutely,
they're right there. And I guess these are the guys. If you abuse time traveling too much, they're gonna get you, right? Is that what they do?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That's what he's dealing with right now. Well, and they go after good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
But anyone that misuses the Speed Force, whether that's Barry or that's Thawne, these guys are going to come after him. I'm glad you mentioned the comic book counterpart because I thought that was really good visual effects. I mean, basically in the comics, Black Flash looks like a zombie version of Barry as the Flash. And that's really what we saw tonight, which I thought was really cool. What did you think about all of that?
I really liked this, and I thought it was really important that we finally figure out the truth about this version of Thawne.
Yep.
Especially coming off of what we knew from Flash this season. And it makes the most sense that he would be the one who holds a grudge against anyone. Barry had him locked up for 6 months after Flashpoint. So for him now to be trying to undermine all these people in their lives, because the Legion of Doom isn't just going after, the power. They want to undo everything.
Right.
And all these people have a piece to him.
Well, that was a really interesting thing we learned tonight as well, was really both the Legends and the Legion kind of were thinking about what are all their goals. Because so we have Malcolm and Damien sort of not wanting to be Thawne's lackeys anymore, so sort of going head-to-head with Thawne. But they had to figure out what is it that Thawne wants. They both know what they want. You know, Dark wants to use the spear to change time so he doesn't die. Malcolm wants to fix his past. You know, Dark wants to fix his future, and basically, Thawne needs to fix everything regarding his life.
Yeah, they're all pulling at different directions. There's gonna be there's a lot of conflict with them. Obviously, I think they don't to trust Thawne.
Right.
He's so damn powerful.
Right.
He's actually could like smoke these guys, I think, and they kind of
absolutely.
feel that.
But what's great is that they are both so brilliant and League of Assassin technicians that they basically manipulate I almost called them Zoom, but manipulated Reverse Flash at the end of this episode, which shows how powerful they are in another way.
Correct.
Right?
They use their brain, you know, and stuff, and their skill of.
Well, and there was also this really cool moment I thought on the ship where they're on the Wave Rider, where they're trying to figure out who is the speedster and what is his end game. And it was great because Sarah has this basically like a murder board like you would have if you were a detective with all the different Flashes or speedsters that we've seen in the Arrowverse. I saw Kid Flash there and Jesse Quick and everyone's kind of there. And then they basically realized that if he's a time remnant, he's a Flash or he's a speedster they haven't met yet. And that's when Stein kind of figures out. So I like that they were able to play into the first season of Flash and actually even use scenes from the finale of the first season. That was great. What did you think, Pete?
I thought that was really perfect. And I think that the thing that this show has done so well is it's kind of tied everything together in a way that we don't see in a lot of things. Just in general, is you see shows that get all these spin-offs that they never lead to really anything, but this show has done such a good job of feeling important to the entire universe. And by going back to Flash Season 1, especially with something like this, it made it feel important. It made it feel like it needed to be, and I liked that a lot. And I think that the dynamic for the power, like we were talking about, and how these guys all want different things, the one that's so not surprising is Dark. He's always, at the very beginning, we see him kind of come back, and he's like, well, yeah, 2016 wasn't my best year, but I can change that. And you know that that's how he always is. And so for him to try to change time again, would people on this show quit trying to change time? All the shows quit trying to change time.
It's a time travel show.
That's what comics do.
I know, but no one learns because they always screw it up.
Then they do it again. Yeah, exactly.
But I thought that was fun, and I thought that was kind of cool, and it's a nice tie back.
And go ahead.
Oh,
Louis.
well, my thing now is that we're gonna have to look at these shows pretty much like it's one big episode. It's now like all the crossovers are now seamless and they're happening all the time. So and then
that's such a good point. And to Patrick's point before, and I was going to say sort of basically the same thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really love all of these shows.
Oh yeah, they're great.
And because even if like let's say you're an Arrow fan or you're a Flash fan, but you kind of need to watch Legends to know what's going on. You need to watch Supergirl, and you're going to want to watch them because it's going to fulfill or really fill out the experience for you watching the one that you love the most more. And you're right. These sort of mini crossovers are now seamless.
They're seamless.
And they have just so much, just like the comic books have such a pantheon of sort of stuff to pick from now. It's really exciting.
And if you miss something like a crossover in one show, you may be lost in the next one.
But they may explain it to you on the other episode, right? You never know. So it's interesting. So let's talk about our legends a little bit on this episode. We didn't get a lot of them, but on the Wave Rider, they're trying to figure out how they have the medallion. Are we calling it the medallion? The emulant? I don't know what exactly
that's
they're called.
what we can call it.
But yeah. So they have this thing, and they're trying to figure out how to get to the spear. And then they realize if they can hook it up to the Wave Rider, then Gideon may be able to give them some answers. So who do they need to call to help them with this? Lily Stein. Yeah. And so that brings up a whole bunch of interesting things on the Wave Rider with all the different characters interacting with her and, according to Stein, not wanting to tell her that she doesn't really exist. What did you think about bringing Lily back?
I thought that this was perfect. Lily's a character who's grown on me for a little while. You and I had talked about this before. We didn't necessarily like her in the beginning, but now she's kind of grown on me. But as she's grown on me, I feel sad because we know she's an aberration, so we know something's going to have to come from that. And so this episode made that so clear, because Stein even says, like halfway through the episode, he goes, we shouldn't have brought her, because of course she finds out she was an aberration. And what does that mean for her? What does that mean for them? Because this feels like something they're setting up for the finale.
Absolutely.
I think that we're going to see down the line, does Stein make the decision to make his daughter, who he's now falling in love with, does she disappear? And what does that mean?
Does she have to disappear? I mean,
that's the
that her
question.
destiny?
Right. I mean, I think that's something that's going to be explored throughout the season. I mean, I definitely had the same feeling as you. I think this was an episode where we're sort of setting up some things to go on in the future. And, you know, it was a bit of a slow bleed with kind of introducing Lily. And the first couple times she was introduced, we were just sort of seeing flashes in his head. We didn't really know what was going on. But now that we as an audience, and this also happened during the crossover invasion, we really got to spend some time with Lily and sit down with her. And I think it also went a far way that Felicity, that Killer Frost, help me out with, I'm blanking on all the names. It's not Felicity, it's, help me out.
Oh my goodness.
We don't know Killer Frost's name?
I know.
You guys just did the Frost
show. Oh my God. We're under the lights,
you know
it's
what I'm
okay.
talking about. So, but Caitlin,
Caitlin,
thank
there
you,
it
Lewis. Caitlin, it took us all 3 minutes to come up with Caitlin.
And in the trivia show, we should have said Zoom.
I know.
know.
So what I was going to say was Caitlin, you know, having the writers have her basically vouch for the character of Lily, I think went a long way to helping the audience really have her grow on them. And I feel the same way that Stein has at this point. She's a character that I like. And I don't know that they have to get rid of her, but I think for the friction and conflict that a television series has to have, the writers will probably go there at some point. It'll be interesting to see how it's resolved.
So the rest of the crew kind of thought Stein was lying all these years, or they were confused about
it hasn't been years, it hasn't been
that.
that long, but I think that the crew, so Sarah knew.
Yeah.
Jax finds out for the first time in this episode. And I'm pretty sure the rest of them all found out for the first time in this episode. But the reveal when Lily found out, because Stein basically said, don't tell Lily, the way Lily found out was when, after she and Ray fixed the ambulance so that it can hook into the Wave Rider, Ray says, hey, let's go have some champagne. And of course, Mick Rory comes in and says, I get drunk off a beer, grabs a beer, and accidentally says, well, you don't really exist. And that opens up the floodgates of... And then we had a really nice father-daughter sort of sentimental scene at the end, which we don't always get on Legends. We're used to that with, like, Joe and Barry on Flash. What did you think of sort of having that nice father-daughter moment?
I thought that was really important. Like you just said, we don't get moments like that on this show very often. This show is always
action-packed.
Yeah, and that's really the meaning of this show. It's always supposed to feel like a crossover every week. They said that in the beginning. So it's always action, action, action. What can we do? How can we put these characters in new situations? How can we push them? And I thought it was nice to really have this moment where two characters actually share something like that. We saw that last week too. Remember, Stein was having very similar conversations with Rory that felt very important and very needed. And I think that we're going a long way with these characters to actually end up with stuff like that. And I think that's good. And
that's a foundation of having a long-lasting series, because we're going to care about the characters. They're more than just, you know, action, like you said. It's going to, you know, feeling. So we're going to be tuning in, wanting to see more from the characters. And if they have to get rid of one, we're going to just be crying.
Well, and that's kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, too, is it was so important that Lily have a moment like this, because for us, we don't know the character.
Right.
And we're just getting to know the character, and so she needs to have this time. We need to know her. And so it was a very important moment just for that alone.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something. I think the secret of the show, really all of the Arrowverse shows, but especially Legends, is taking these really well-developed, written characters from the comic book culture, from that catalog of DC Comics, characters that maybe didn't interact in the comics, casting brilliant actors to bring these characters to life, and then seeing how they mix together. And that's the fun of Legends for me, and I think we got a little bit of that in this episode.
I was going to say, I think you're right. We get that, and they've been doing that a lot this season.
Yes.
We were talking about that last week. I think this show has developed so much that we're getting so much of that with these characters and where we can go next. And I think it's so cool that it really found its footing this year.
Yeah,
like,
I think
it
so
really
too.
has.
Absolutely. So last point I want to get to before we run out of time, and I could talk Legends
Already?
of Tomorrow.
Already?
all
Always.
night.
Till tomorrow.
But till tomorrow, right? But the very end reveal. So basically, they get into the vault. The Legion of Doom, Legends and Legion. There's a lot.
Yeah.
But the Legion of Doom get into this vault in 2025, where Rip has hidden what they think is the Spear of Destiny. Turns out to be. Thawne uses a technical future term, but let's just call it a hard drive, because that's essentially what it is.
They use James Cameron words.
Yeah, they use James Cameron words, exactly, Patrick, very good, to describe this hard drive, and basically on the hard drive is Rip's brain, is his memory, is his emotions.
Yeah.
And so at the very end, Thawne is kind of playing with it a little bit, fixing it, and Malcolm says, Dark says to him, what are you doing today? And it basically says, well, there's no reason to just leave it like this. Let's take out some of the things I don't like about him. And then the flash, bam, to black. And then we go to 1776, Christmas Day, the American Revolution, or Revolutionary War. And in comes Rip into George Washington's tent. He pulls a gun, a modern day gun on him, and we see him shoot. Now, we don't know if he shoots George Washington or not, but Rip Hunter killing George Washington. That's a heck of a way to end the episode. What did you think, Patrick?
I feel like I said James Cameron earlier, and now all of a sudden Rip Hunter is the Terminator. That's kind of where it feels for me, because, the Terminator was a killing machine. It had no soul. It had no feelings. And I'm wondering if they're messing with his feelings, they're taking away those important parts of him. If they're making him a robot-type character that will change history for them, that's exactly what they've turned him into. I think it's a very interesting dynamic, especially considering he was a character last season who we wanted to see him get with his family again or try to save his family. To see him go from that to cold-blooded killer is very interesting.
Absolutely.
There's going to be a twist here. I think a speedster is going to save Mr. George Washington.
Oh, that's an interesting theory for next week. So you think we'll like pick up next week at this scene, at the beginning of the scene, and once the bullet comes out, before a speedster will come and grab it? That's interesting.
Yeah. Do you think, is this happening at the same time the Flash is happening? If it's different, could we see the introduction of Kid Flash?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about
kind of
that.
a good.
Well, I mean, we saw
like
a picture of Kid Flash on the murder board in the Wave
That
Rider
usually
tonight.
means something.
So that could mean that we also saw Jesse Quick, to be fair, and a few of the other evil speedsters that we've had on the Flash. So, I mean, that's a really interesting thing. I wonder where they'll pick up next week. And I was also not completely sure, a little confused at the end, if once Thawne is messing with the brain, if he then sends Rip to 1776 to do that, or if in messing with his brain somehow messed with the time stream so that in 1776, Rip already shot George Washington. I'm not quite sure. It'll be interesting to see how they play that out.
I think you're more on point with the first part, because we already know that Thawne can go back and forth in time. It would make the most sense for him to try to send him back to do his bidding almost.
Well, actually, now that we know that Thawne can't travel too much in time because he's got the Grim Reaper after him, and that actually, I'll buy that theory because that makes sense that he would send Rip to do that. Now, why he wants to kill George Washington, I have no idea. We can make some guesses, but hopefully that'll be revealed.
Take George Washington's place. Who knows?
Well, to overthrow power.
Yeah, of course.
Change history to the point,
in a dramatic and drastic.
Start that way and keep going, man.
Yeah.
That's all these guys know.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to hit the Twitter for us, Lewis, and see if we have any questions, anything we can take
I do want to bring up a point,
please.
is that the Legion of Doom was calling our heroes a bunch of dummies.
They did. They called them idiots, which was great. And that actually was cut with, I think, Sarah calling, oh no, was it Rory called the rest of the legends?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great when you have basically Thawne calling the Legion of Doom idiots, cut to Rory saying the rest of his crew is a bunch of idiots. And it's a really fun dynamic. And I wonder, now that I'm saying that out loud and thinking, if that's some sort of connection, because Thawne was saying idiots, and then Mick says idiots, if Mick will eventually, because we know Captain Cold is coming.
Oh,
and
spoiler.
will we see Heatwave make his way over? And that's an interesting thought. Would you want to see the current Heatwave go over to the Legion, or do we like heroic Heatwave?
I like heroic Heatwave because I think
too.
we've come a long way with him. And it's something we talked a little bit about last week is I like this dynamic. And that's what I think is so interesting because the more we're hearing, it sounds like the Captain Cold we're going to meet is the past Captain Cold.
I believe
And
that's been confirmed. He's the bad guy Captain Cold.
So that's very interesting, especially for us, and Mickey, obviously, but for us as fans who have watched him grow so much, I can't imagine
that
how
dynamic is going to be fascinating. I agree.
Especially because he's already tormented by him.
Yeah. Final thoughts?
I like the episode. I like where it's
Heroic
going.
Heatwave? What do we say? Do we
Oh,
like
sorry.
Heatwave heroic?
I was looking for questions.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have to wrap it up, so we're not going to be able to get to the Twitter.
Heroic with heroic.
Heroic Heatwave or evil Heatwave?
Evil Heatwave.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. Well, that's about all the time we have. I could talk Legends of Tomorrow with you guys all day long.
Yeah.
But I want to remind you guys that we have this great poster to give away, so if you comment and like our Facebook page, you will be entered to win one of these. And I would also like to tell you guys to check out these incredible Facebook pages that we have for all of our shows. They're run by the amazing Lance Ostfresser, and we're clapping for Lance and for me not chopping up Lance's last name. So I want to thank my Wave Rider crew, Lewis Love.
Thank you for having me on your show, man.
As always, thank you. And the great Patrick Campbell.
Thank you again for having me as well. And guys, I just want to remind you, we're not the only show right now. We've got Flash After Show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's all sorts of stuff.
Supergirl, Arrow.
Yeah.
We got every show you love, we've got an after show for it. So we definitely want you to check them all
out
out.
Stream TV. We're trying to do amazing work, and I think we are. And so just continue to support us. We can't do this without you guys and the amazing people
I
here.
actually got rid of my cable. I was like searching through the
Who needs
YouTube.
cable when you have the Stream
Yeah,
TV?
there's so many
Exactly.
shows in there. I was just like clicking through. I was like, what? This is here, this is that.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
We're very happy to be doing this show every week for you guys, so we hope that you'll check us out again next week. I want to thank you for checking out the Legends of Tomorrow after show right here on thestream.tv. I'm Jamie Philbrick. We'll see you next week. Yeah.